Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Aristocrats Soccer Podcast. I'm joined with my co-host, Dave Harris. Dave, say hi.
Hi. What's going on, Gene?
Hey, what's up? Dave, I don't know if we've discussed this or not, but this week we have a third co-host, which is kind of weird, kind of wild. This week we are joined by Marion Cole, who has been on one of the episodes. So welcome, Marion.
Thanks, Jake. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Marion. How are you?
I'm good.
So we're trying a little something new this week, and maybe for the future. Marion is she's part-time. She's on a bit of a trial.
She was already late, so that's like,
maybe it's not a trial. We'll see. No contract has officially been signed yet.
Pressure went to here.
The question, Jake, is Marion truly elite? Or
not? Marion's elite.
We'll find out today.
Yes, from discussions I've had with Marion, she is definitely elite. But moving on to this week's episode, we are joined by Marion's former college roommate and teammate, Gabby Seiler. Gabby, welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So Gabby, also a professional soccer player with the Portland Thorns, and now with the Houston Dash.
So Gabby has
former roommate.
Yes. So Gabby has. You were just traded yesterday, we were actually scheduled to do this podcast yesterday, and you asked for a day of reprieve, which was very understandable. So just walk us through kind of your 2020 season, which was crazy for everyone, and you guys ended up winning the fall series with Portland, which is probably a fun accomplishment for you. And then also just yesterday, you got traded from Portland to the Houston Dash.
Yes. 2020 was crazy. I learned that I definitely hate individual training because for the first month of COVID, I was doing individual training. No, it was a super unique experience, but I think it was cool with NWSL because we were the first league to be back post-COVID, I guess, or during COVID. And that was a pretty cool experience. And I think the NWSL still has a lot of growth, but I think being able to be a part of that in a global pandemic was really cool. And the protocols were great and it was handled really well. It was super professional. So that was really cool to be a part of. And the fall series and the Challenge Cup were obviously all very new to us, but it was really fun, and being in a bubble for a month was definitely weird. Like staying in a hotel, not being able to go anywhere. But I think we got a lot closer as a team, which I think when you're a pro in any sport, I think sometimes you don't have the same kind of collectiveness as you maybe do in college. And I think having the bubble and being in a hotel with all of your teammates, like we grew a lot closer and we got to know each other on like kind of a whole different level. So that was really unique and cool. And I think that's why we did so well going into the fall series, just because I think we had bonded so well in the Challenge Cup.
That's awesome. So what was that trade like after you had bonded so well with your teammates and then you're like, all right, see you later, everyone?
Well, I mean, I just got engaged like a month ago. So
Let's see that rock.
Oh, it's getting sized. Sorry.
I'm playing. She's not even wearing it.
Yeah, he's really bad. Okay, back to what I was saying. So basically I kind of initiated the trade. I really wanted to be closer to home, and being out in Portland was just so far away, and it was really tough for my family to get out there. I wasn't really near anybody, and planning a wedding would also be hard being that far away. And there was just a lot that was kind of going into it. And I think I was ready for something new. I was ready to be closer to home. So I wasn't like super shocked by the trade. I just you don't really know where you're going to get traded to. So, but obviously Houston's an amazing team, and I think haven't even been close to peaking. And so I'm really excited about that. And I have some former teammates who actually play for the Dash. I played club with Jane Campbell and Shay Groom. Me and her have been with youth national team camps together. There's a couple other girls that I know just through the league. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, I'm really sad because I have a lot of my really close friends in Portland, but I don't think any of that will change. I think they're excited for me for a new experience too.
I'm gonna hang back, Marion. Go for it, with Jake and ask the questions.
Well, well, that's why she mentioned that Houston wasn't even close to peaking. And when I was kind of like looking through your Instagram and stuff when they were announcing it yesterday, and just like the amount of young talent. I mean, Rachel Daly, Mewis, obviously Shay is, we both played with Shay before. And I just feel like with you now, like it's a team that's just going to be like collectively literally peaking for the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Houston has struggled a little bit in the past because I think they haven't figured it out team culture wise, but James, their new coach, he's like all about team culture and making sure that everybody understands their role. And really he puts a huge emphasis on, how you practice is how you're going to play in a game. And I think that's super important. I mean, obviously we played collegiately, and like, I think sometimes you kind of get a pass at practice. Like, not everyone is on the same page sometimes, but I think when you have that culture on your team, it's like you have to bring it every single day, no matter who you are. And I think that's super important, especially if you want to be the best team. And I think Houston's on that track. So
when you look, I was thinking about this. I was like, I wonder for Gabby, you've had so many like twists and turns kind of in your career. And even really like when you were younger, you and I would sit there and talk about it sometimes about how you were just kind of over it. Like there were definitely like periods of time where you're just like, I just don't even know if I want to like play pro, go try and play pro. And we were all like, Gabby, you had like, it would be a waste of talent if you didn't. But, I just feel like there were some times that your heart just wasn't in it a little bit because of somewhat of the team culture you and I had at Georgia, like where it is, I mean, seriously, it was kind of like, did you really ever know what you were going to get at practice that day? Like, not really. So like when you look back, do you feel like when you transferred to Florida, that was kind of like setting your path to be a pro more so?
Yeah, I mean, I think me going to Georgia I wasn't ready to go to Florida. I don't think right out of high school. Like, I don't think I mentally was in it. And like, I think I worked hard, don't get me wrong, to go to Georgia, but I think a lot of my soccer talent kind of came more naturally. And so I think when I got to Georgia, I think I just felt like if I didn't work harder, if I didn't go into an environment where I maybe wasn't going to get better, like, would I regret that? Or was I missing out on something? And so I think, and then when I got to Florida, it was like, okay, this is your only option. Like you have to, like, I remember my like first week at Florida, like I saw girls getting to practice like an hour early and doing all these extra things. And I was like, wait, is this normal? It's like, that was the standard. Like the standard was you get there an hour early to do extra stuff, or you're staying after, and I think, that I give that credit to Becky. Like she has kind of instilled that kind of culture. And so I think once I got into that environment at Florida, it was like, okay, I can do this. And if I really want to play pro, like I have to put in the work now. And I think kind of like a what am I trying to say? Like a light switch, it was like, is that even the right term? I don't know. But I just felt like a light bulb went off in my head. Like I can play pro if I really want to put in the work now. And I think that's kind of what happened when I transferred to Florida.
How much so you and Marion were together, and with my conversations that I've had with Marion on Triumph team events, which are now over, sadly. But how much did your relationship with Marion, because Marion did seem like a kind of similar mentality to what you ended up being, in that she wanted to try to play professionally. It just didn't work out for her. Did your relationship kind of push you in the direction of like, hey, let me try to transfer to Florida, let me get in a more professional environment? Did that play any role?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem at Georgia was just that there was probably like maybe a very small group of us who maybe wanted to play professionally. And I think, and that's totally fine. Like everybody is completely different. Everybody has different aspirations. But I think, we did try to stick together at Georgia, the ones who like were super focused, or, I don't know. There were even girls on Georgia who maybe didn't want to play pro, but like when they came to practice, it was like they wanted to be there. They wanted to win, and they had like that desire to like want to try to be the best. Totally. And like, I think we tried to all kind of stick together when we were at Georgia.
And I think that like to speak to that, and you speak to the culture at Houston, which, like I'm excited for. I feel like you've seen every kind of different culture there is. And Jake, that's one thing, like working for a guys team that has been so interesting for me to see, as opposed to working or being on a female team. literally, and I know that this is probably the case in every guy's locker room as well, but I feel like the amount of difference on a scale that you can find in a women's locker room compared to really like a men's locker room is unbelievable. Like, it's kind of like what Gabby's saying. Like, there were some people that you're just like, literally, why are you here? Like, you know, and then there were those of us like, you know, that we were like, okay, we really want to try, like we want to do this. And kind of like what Gabby's saying, the people that are in the middle, they're like, well, if I'm going to be here, I might as well work hard to be the best and try and get a starting spot. And so I feel like at Georgia specifically, like, you know, we had one of our best friends, Bria, who was kind of on that same path as well. And so literally it was probably, like Gabby was saying, 3 or 4 of us that would put in like the extra work and like make time to, we just had a lot of people that like other things were important, which again is totally fine. But, you know, I feel like at Florida, it was kind of like, even if you don't want to go play pro, like you're going to be here and you're going to put in the work. And it's not like because you're a part of this team. So either get off the field literally or don't. And so I feel like in Georgia, we just had such a mixture of cultural, like, not cultural differences, but like of what we all thought was important. And there was no like direct vision of like, okay, yeah, those things are important, but while you're here, like this is what's important. You know, I mean, we had people missing for tests, for class, like, and I get it, but at the same time, it's like it's like we're there to play soccer, you know. So I don't know. It was it was kind of a weird experience, and I feel like Georgia is a little bit of those. And Gabby, you can probably speak to this. We had one of the top recruiting classes in the country, and we had so many talent that, you know,
such a good team. There was no reason why we should.
Like there was no reason that we should not have been better than we were, but it all comes down to, I just find it so interesting that in a women's locker room, so much more of your success on the field comes down to your culture of like desire than I feel like it maybe does in the men's game.
And I can attest to that because since I've been home, I've been training with boys, and it's just so different. Like, and it's great. And I love it because it's like, this is going to sound bad, but it's like all the BS stuff, it doesn't matter, isn't brought. Yeah. It's like, you're there to play stuff. Like sometimes I try to joke with them and they like don't want to joke with me. And I'm like, okay, fine. You know, but it's like, they're so focused on being there. And like, it's been great for me because like, I need to be reeled in sometimes. And so it's been good, but it is so different. And like, I mean, even I've been here for a month training with like 30 boys, you know, and it's like even if like maybe they're not going to play in college, like some of these boys are probably only at a high school level, but like when they're there, they're focused. And not that you're not when you're a female, but I just feel like you're saying, it's just different.
It's just, and you take stuff like for guys, sometimes, at least for like the practices I've come to for the Triumph, like, I mean, some y'all get at each other, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. but it's no hard feelings. And like, It takes a very seasoned, like, you don't get that at the girls' game until you get to that elite level of a professional, of a women's where you can call out each other, but there's no hard feelings when you get into the locker room. Like in Georgia, sometimes we would have people literally crying into the locker room because we'd be like, "You're better than that," and they're like, "Ah."
Yeah.
You know, so
I just think, like you said, it's like different. There needs to be a balance of like, okay, you don't need to take it personal. Like if I tell you to move out wide, it's not because I don't like you. It's because like you need to move out wide. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes you run into that in college of like people taking things personal, but like when you get to the pro level, like if Lindsay yells at me to do something, like it's not because she doesn't like me. It's because like that's what I need to do. Yeah. You know, so it's like it is true when you get to the pro level that it's true. Like all the BS stuff, it doesn't matter. Like.
So Gabby, through your time training with boys, playing with girls, both in the college and professional level, I agree with you. I've trained with girls as well, and I do notice a slight difference in terms of like what you guys are talking about. Is there anything that you've picked up that you'd kind of give advice to a young girl maybe that's really a kind of elite level on the high school level, the college level, or even the professional? What would you say to them if they're in a similar position that you were? How can you handle that situation maybe better than you guys did?
So I'm going to like answer that in 2 parts. First, I think the best thing that girls who are younger in college and high school can do is play with boys. And I say that because they're unfortunately like they're faster and their speed of play is quicker. And So if you can make those quick decisions when you're playing with boys, it's going to be so much easier when you're playing on whatever team you're playing on, college, high school. So like that's my biggest piece of advice, because growing up I played with boys. And then 2, I think looking back on my career, something that maybe I regret or I would have done differently is trying to play more in the summer, or like trying to, like, I feel like there's this weird gap of like, you get done with you have a spring season, but it's kind of like, like going through the motions, like that's, it is what it is, but spring season's just weird. And then summer happens and it's like, you have these weird gaps of like, you don't really know who to play with. You don't want to necessarily, you want to go home for a little bit. I'm super blessed now that I have a club that's right in my backyard and I get to train with boys, but like I never had that in college. And I think looking back, I wish I would have done just like a little bit more of that in my off season, because I think like, unfortunately, like when you're at this level, or even if you're in college, you have to keep playing, and you can only do so much by yourself, or you have to keep training, and obviously you need to take time off as well, but you can't take a month off. And so I think looking back, I would just tell people, like, I don't want it to be overkill, because I think there's opposite extremes nowadays of like parents killing their kids with like doing too much. God, okay. But I think there does need a little bit more of a balance of, you don't need to take a month off, but especially in college, I don't know, Marion, if you felt that way, but it's like, sometimes you like don't know where to practice, or, so I think like find a good place where you can like go somewhere in the off season and be able to train. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I totally, like, it wasn't until I think senior, like the summer going into senior year, where I was just like, okay, are you going to try and play pro, like, or not? Like, and it's like, okay, I am. And then that was when I was just like, all right, well, I do need to play in the summer. And, you find the end up like the NPSL teams, or, whoever it may be. And like the closest one for me was Birmingham, which is 4 hours. Because like, I'm like you, I'm like, I haven't been back home in Mississippi in like 6 months. Like, I want to go home. I want to chill. Like, and that was, Maverick was living, my dog was back here because I didn't have him really in college. It's like, like you have all of these different elements, which again, I think is somewhat different in the boys game, because it's just like, to them, it's just natural. Yeah. Like, I don't know if it's us. Like, I don't know if there's something wrong with, like where we just like, we're like, we want to do all these things. And we just like, you at the end of the day, it's like what you're saying. Yes, there needs to be a balance, but like, you do have to make a decision if you want to play at a high level, or if you don't. And like, if you do, like, you've got to make some sacrifices. And I'm like you, I totally look back and I'm like, why didn't I play like every single summer? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that is something I think on this podcast, we talk a lot about opportunity, both in like pre-professional and professional level. And on the boys side, we have the PDL, we have the NPSL, and in the PDL, there's like 70 teams across the country. The NPSL probably has like 100, Dave. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about that, but there's like almost 200. Yeah, there's like 200 teams that boys could play for in the summer. And I had, within like 3 hours, I must have had 10 teams. So just the opportunity between NPSL, between PDL, which is very similar level, both high levels. So I think the issue on the women's side is just opportunity. I mean, yes, there are those summer league teams that you guys are talking about, but they're not as much. And you said it was 4 hours away. So I think over time, as the NWSL grows, you have a new team this year in Louisville. As hopefully that league grows, then the summer league teams for the college players will also grow, and you'll be able to do it. But Gabby, you didn't play at all in the summer, did you either? When you were at Georgia or Florida?
I did. I kind of, same thing with Marion. Like when I went to Florida, I played for a summer team in Jacksonville, which was great. I loved it. But kind of like what Marion said, it's like, it's so hard because, I'm a homebody. Like I love being home. I have 6 nieces and nephews. I know I have 6, Marion. It's scary. But my poor brother. But I like being home and I like being able to see them. But sometimes you had to sacrifice being home and staying with people. And like, I feel like I have moved so much. I don't know where any of my stuff is. Like, I feel like I have things in like 20 different places. And I feel like there's just so much. But you have to make sacrifices, unfortunately. And I think it's just a little bit harder in the women's game because even the WPSL, like it's not great soccer. Like it's good if you have like a good coach and you're like training and you have the opportunity maybe to train with boys who are like younger, but it's scarce. So it's definitely tough.
I was just going to jump in and say real quick with the U23, like college, I did the women's U23 teams for a couple summers, and it was the hardest thing I've ever had to organize in my life. As far as, and I'm talking about work or, it was just, it is different than the guys. And, these were all like college. I was trying to get, top college players from, here in New York, Long Island. And I think a lot of you basically, it's like you do need downtime, time home with the family, recharge the batteries. But at the same time, you just want to be able to get some games and sessions in, where you train a bit and stay fit, and then get ready for preseason. But I felt I could see the pressure, and with a lot of the young women that I spoke with that were good players, and just getting pulled in different directions, and it just maybe recovering from an injury. It just it was different, but it's a lot of them really just needed to kind of recharge the batteries and get ready and stay fresh too. So
As you I feel like the mental game has been a huge thing for you, especially as you've gotten older and at a higher level. We talked about how, like, in college, it was kind of that on the fence mentality. You got to Florida, it was more so like, I'm doing this, I'm all in. But you've dealt with a lot of stuff, and like, you've dealt with a lot of injuries. I know, just from Hunter and his experience, like just being away from family for so long, like that takes out of you. Jake, you can probably relate to that too. Like, moving, having things in so many different places. I feel like there's so many mental sides of the game of just really continuing to play that people don't talk about. It's a hard thing sometimes just to decide you want to play another season just because of everything that's going on. So like, I don't know, like, how would you say that, like, looking back on your journey, like the mental aspect of everything, how has it kind of just transformed? How has it grown? What sides of things have you seen, improvements in your own mental game about?
Yeah, I think one, you have to love it because that's what I try to tell people, because I'm like, if you don't love it, then don't do it. Like I have some teammates now who are in college, some prior teammates who are like, I don't know if I'm going to play pro. And I'm like, let me just tell you one thing. If you don't love it, please don't do it, because seriously, it'll drain you mentally. It's definitely one of the hardest things I've ever experienced, but it's also been one of the most rewarding things. But I think one, you just have to love it. And then two, the mentality that I think I've grown a lot within the last year, I would say last year and a half at Portland, is controlling what you can control. I think so much of your pro career are, you can control what you're putting into it, and you can control your mentality at practice. You can control so many different things, but you can't control the decisions that your coaches are going to make, or you can't control if you get injured. And I think, you can to an extent, but sometimes you can't. Not controllable, So I think for me, I've just tried to really focus on the controllables. And then the third thing I've tried to do is just be really grateful for the situation that I do have. I think, like, obviously we don't make a lot of money, and it's not maybe the most like financially ideal career, but there's so many other things that I've held on to and I'm grateful for. Like I get to be home for 2 months. Like there's no job where you can just go home for 2 months, and like, yeah, I still have to work and I still have to train, but it's like, I still get to be around my family and I get to do things like that. And I think that's really unique, and I'm really grateful for that. And so I try to hold on to, like, I guess the things that are really positive, because I think if you focus on the negatives, and I feel like you fall into a trap of focusing on negatives when you're surrounded by maybe negative people or negative energy. But I think I just try to control what I can control and try to focus on the positives, because I think at the end of the day, that's the only way you could keep playing in the NWSL. You have to just keep moving and keep going forward, even if things don't go your way.
Kind of piggybacking on the controlling controllables. So you got drafted in the first round. in 2018, and then right away, or basically right away, you hurt your knee. So it was the ACL, right?
So I tore my LCL and I told Portland I was having knee surgery the next day of the draft, and they still drafted me. So I was super grateful for that, because obviously I did not realize the extent of what that injury was going to put me through. Like, it was the most grueling. It was awful. But so my ACL really was a breeze compared to that, which I'm grateful that I tore my LCL first, because it was horrible. But yeah, I mean, obviously I couldn't control that I was going to have surgery, and Portland still took a chance on me, which they made my dream happen. So I'm super grateful for that. But yeah, sorry, just interrupted you.
Yeah. So like, what was the recovery process like? Were there a lot? I'm sure there were a lot of down days when you're watching the team play, when you're not progressing along as quickly as you would like.
Yeah, it was horrible. I was on crutches for 9 weeks, non-weight bearing. I lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment with no elevator. And so you just put that, I didn't leave my apartment, really hard.
Yeah.
Because it was my right leg. I couldn't drive. I mean, I got really depressed because I couldn't do anything. And I did not realize, like, I woke up from surgery and I had 20 staples, and I had no idea. I'm like, oh, it's probably going to be like a little scar. No, my scar's this big. And so it was a very, very, really tough experience. But I think since I went through that in the beginning of my career, it was kind of just like, okay, it can't get much worse than this. And it could have gotten worse. But in my head, I'm like, going through that and being able to come back from that, even though I did tear my ACL, it's like just me being able to like even be at the level that I could be at my rookie year after coming off that. I guess it wasn't technically my rookie year, but essentially it was. Being able to even step on the field and like put a Portland Thorns jersey on, to me was like a really amazing accomplishment, because I really didn't know if I was going to be able to play again. So
Yeah, I remember. So Jake, I don't know if you've ever been to like our 7th like floor offices at Endeavor.
I have not ventured over there with the
well,
front
I
office.
had like, so when I first came, they didn't have like an office for me, right? So I was like, there's an island basically that separates 2 sides of the offices, and literally everyone was over here, and I was over here like in a cubicle with like Clemson people. And Bria had gone to your ACL, so Gabby's having like literally an incredible season, like, and I can't not knowing how awful that was for you to do your LCL and not wonder if you're ever going to play, to have the season that you did, and then to tear your ACL. Bria, the girl that I mentioned earlier, she was visiting Gabby actually in Portland.
at my practice.
Yeah, literally at practice. And I get this, and Bria like doesn't like call, like, unless it's like something. I'm like, why is Bria calling me at like 11 a.m.? Like, and she was just, Marion. I'm like, what, Bria? Like, what's wrong? Like, she's literally in tears. She's like, Gabby's down. She's I'm just like, what do you mean? And then she told me that Gabby had torn her ACL, and Gabs, I just like, I can't imagine again, just the mentality that you have to have, how strong it has to be to fight through all that, literally have a standout rookie season and tear your ACL, and you didn't even get to finish that season, right? Like, that was...
No, we had like, I think like a month and a half left,
Yeah.
or we had like maybe 6 games.
Yeah, but you're fully recovered now from your ACL, right? Cleared. And,
yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few hiccups just because, I mean, you know how it is. Like, it's just a battle. Like, I've had 2 knee surgeries on the same leg, and I still have so much muscle to gain back in my leg. So I have to be super careful, because that's basically what I'm working on now, is like gaining a lot of that strength back, so I'm more symmetrical, because like if I don't, I could get injured again. So that's been like a lot of what I've been working on this off season, is like really trying to gain that strength back, because when you're coming back from an injury, it's like you finish your rehab and then it's like, great, you're thrown into it, and so just trying to like work back from that is obviously, it's always a battle. I mean, I remember when I tore my ACL, and like Tobin was the first person to like help me, because she knew, like, everyone kind of knew, like, you just know when you tear your ACL. I don't know why, but you just know. And so I remember she was saying like when she had her ankle surgeries, like she still doesn't have a lot of her calf muscle back, which I'm like, yes, you do. But she thinks she does. But she, it takes so long for you to and sometimes you don't get all of it back, but it takes so long when you're coming back from injury to get it back, let alone like you've had one or two, it's tougher. So
yeah. So moving on to Houston. Oh, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you had that great article, discovering your why on the Equalizer, and I think it's been chronicled. And I saw the interview you did with Nat Borchers, and you really went through all of, the struggles you had with the injuries, and just maybe just touch on the reaction to the article as far as like any positive messages that you may have gotten from players, from youngsters, young players, trying to become professional players, things like that. Like, it was very inspirational, great article, so you must have gotten some really good feedback to it.
Thank you. I guess this is sad, but I feel like whenever I see somebody in the NWSL or even in college, like tear their ACL, I immediately message them, because I think the biggest thing that I felt when I did tear my ACL is like I had a lot of support, and like support from like all different people that maybe I hadn't met before, but people who had torn their ACL, or I feel like we have like little club, which is like, I don't want to be a part of the club, but at the same time, like having that support system, I think that's why I do love the NWSL. Like as much as like we're super competitive on the field, like we are kind of like a big little family in the sense of like, we all kind of know everything. And like if we know somebody's struggling or we know somebody's going through something, like we do try to take care of each other and like reach out and like make sure, even if it's like a comment on an Instagram or a text, like I remember like feeling like overwhelmed by so much support. And I think that's kind of what like keeps you like pushing forward. And like, that's not to say, like you can ask my coaches and my PTs, like I was miserable the first 3 months of my rehab, maybe first 4 months, because like I was telling you guys, like this is where I think I've grown a lot as far as like just my mentality. I truly focused on the negatives for my first 3 months of recovery, and I was miserable to be around. Like I know they probably hated me because I was miserable. Like I was like depressed. Like I couldn't get over the fact that I tore my ACL. And I think once I finally like realized, like, Gabby, it's not going to change. Like you have to move on from this at some point. And so I think once I like finally got over the hump of like, okay, it happened, but like how successful or how you're going to come back for this is how you're going to respond. And so I think once I truly changed that mentality, it was like, okay, I finally started seeing like real progressions. And I just remember being just so miserable to be around the first 3 months. And like I know, like even Mark, my coach from Portland, he's like, we kind of laugh about it because he's like, I've just seen a whole different side of you. Because like I said, I do try to be grateful that I'm even just on the field playing. And I think my whole mentality has shifted since those 3 months. So.
Yeah, I think everybody in America and around the world loves a good comeback story, and you've already kind of made your own, and we're looking forward to seeing the rest of it play out. But just kind of transitioning now to maybe happier moments this year. I mean, we've covered a lot of ACL. My girlfriend is also a part of the ACL club. She did it in high school, and she calls it the ACL club. So I guess you guys are a part of it.
It's literally a club.
Yeah, I wouldn't say congratulations, but you have a sticker or whatever.
I hope that I'm alive and around when like it's not a thing, or like when it's not such a long recovery. I'm like, but yeah. Anyways, moving on.
Anyway, so you at Portland, you guys won the fall series. So I asked previously, who do we have? Haley Hansen with the Houston Dash, your now new teammate. We had her on the podcast a couple weeks ago. She's very nice. You'll enjoy her.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Her and Veronica are very funny together. They're roommates.
They're
But anyway, they won the Challenge Cup in the summer, and then I think they got second in the fall series. And I kind of asked them, like, what was it like as players? Because you have this Challenge Cup, which is like kind of like your World Cup in a sense, like your big tournament. And then like, how'd the fall series compare to that Challenge Cup? Was it kind of on equal pegging, or like obviously you won, which is great. So congratulations. But I'm just very curious, like how was it considered around the league?
So it's actually so funny because I remember like, I played in the Challenge Cup, but I remember like coming back from the Challenge Cup, like being disappointed because I'm like, I wanted to contribute more. I wanted, I just felt like, those were my first couple of games back. So like, I was glad to get those out of the way. But I remember like, when we got back from the Challenge Cup, like everybody went home, because we had 3 weeks off, and I stayed in Portland and I trained because I felt a little bit disappointed. And I wanted to do more. And so when the fall series comes around, I'm like at training, I'm ready to go. I'm like, yes, I'm so excited. And my teammates are like, what's wrong with you? So like our first week, I remember like we all were kind of like, I was pumped. I was pumped and I'm like ready to go. And then like I could just tell like people were just like, what is this fall series, Sorry, my dogs literally never stop barking. You remember that, she never stops barking. Anyway, so I remember like we had to have like a team like come together moment where we were like, listen, we know that this fall series is stupid. Like, not that it's stupid, but it was like we came back from the Challenge Cup and like we were just like, we're mentally like drained, which we were in a bubble for a month. I totally understand it. But we finally just had like this come together moment where we were like, okay, it is what it is. But when we step on the field, like we need to like bring it every day, like at training, like we need to treat this like it's winning like an NWSL championship. And I think once we had that team meeting, like from then on, like the level was there. And like, obviously we won the fall series. So like we were focused and I think our whole mentality kind of shifted. But in the very beginning, like it was rough just because I think the Challenge Cup was draining. It's just like you're there for so long. You didn't have your pets with you. You didn't get to see your significant others. It's like, it was really hard. And so I think like when the fall series happened, like, I think all teams I'm sure went through some sort of like mental, like what even is this kind of thing. But we got to do something really good for charity. And we obviously got to donate like $25,000 to a local Portland company, which was amazing. And I think that is like at the end of the day, like kind of what pushed us to like really do well in that and know that we could like make a difference in the community. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's the key to the league. There's so many, all these leagues around the world outside from the EPL, the big leagues. Our purpose is more the community, and Marion can speak to that as whatever your title is at the Triumph. You're involved in that. I'm not quite sure. Whatever your title is, I
there's a lot of research.
I really don't care to ask, honestly. I just know you do some stuff, media, community, and it's very important for clubs like us. The NWSL is obviously the highest or the best women's league in the world, so it's a little different. But still, your mission is like connect with the community, give back. Inspire kids. So that it's great that you guys were able to do that in the fall series. And I think looking back in 20 years, you'll take the fall series and you'll be like, yeah, I won the NWSL in 2020. It was pretty great. I got a medal, whatever else you guys got. So
you got a medal? I don't even know if we did. Wait.
Oh.
Yeah, we did. No, we did.
Okay. I was going to say lie on the podcast. Let's build this up a little bit.
No, but I will say like the one thing that I truly am so grateful for is getting to experience Portland, and their fans are, like I said this on my Instagram yesterday, but like they truly are the heartbeat of women's soccer. And I can't even describe to you guys like my first game at Providence Park and like walking onto the field and like literally I started crying, which like that's not a rare thing, but I like couldn't believe just like the support in that city and for women and for women's soccer. Like it's the most incredible thing I think I've ever experienced. And so if we can be a part of that and like give back to the community at all, like it's super important. It's like something that when you play for the Portland Thorns, it's like it's like the number one thing. Like we support this community, like we help out, like we have like a whole week where we literally just volunteer and do things for the community. And so that's the one thing I'm like so happy about because it's so important. And I think that's like one of the ways we're going to grow women's soccer is like getting the community involved and like rallying everybody behind women's soccer. And I think it's getting there and it's growing, but that is like the one thing that
we are experiencing technical difficulties. She is currently frozen right now, so please bear with us as So Marion, how's life? Sorry.
There she is.
What just happened?
You froze for a second. You were in the middle of a great point
My
that you're going to make.
says
But
this unstable classic.
yeah. Luckily for you, we never do any editing, so that will just be very organic. Our viewers will enjoy the little lag you had there.
What's happening? No one's responding.
And anyway, I guess transitioning now, since we kind of covered that question. You in college, you made the move from Georgia to Florida, and that ignited your career on the professional level. And then now, she may still be frozen, but we'll see.
No, she's there. She's there.
Okay, and now
She stares sometimes.
On the professional level, you're moving from Portland to Houston. And what are your goals now moving forward for the next couple of years? I would imagine every women's player we talk to, their main focus is how can I get on the national team, whether it's for 1 cap or for 20 caps or get to a World Cup. So how do you think this move can help you get to where you want to be as a player?
I think for me, this is again something you sometimes can't control, but I wanted to stay healthy. I mean, I know coming off any sort of knee injury, coming off of any injury, like first off, you never know how long your career is going to be. I mean, it could end at any moment, And so for me, I would love to be on the national team. Like, I feel like that's been a goal of like, when you grow up playing soccer, it's like Mia Hamm is your idol and you want to be on the national team, And, the worst part is like when I did tear my ACL, I had just gotten called into, it wasn't like it was a full team camp, but it was like I don't even know what it was, but it was a bigger pool of players because they're trying to bring in some younger players. And so I had just gotten called into camp and then I tore my ACL. And so that was obviously super hard. But I think for me is like, I'm just going to try to live in the moment and work really hard to make an impact on Houston, whether, like I said, you can't always control if you're going to play or not, but I want to try to set myself up to be able to make an impact. And if that means I'm on the bench, then I'm going to be the best bench warmer there ever is. But I think just being able to like play at that level to me is a blessing. And I just want to try to work super hard to like get on the field and to make an impact. But sometimes that's not going to happen. So for me, I'm trying to set myself little goals, especially coming off an injury, of just trying to make it into that starting 11 or making it, little goals like that, and trying to, do things like doing your prehab and doing things that maybe can prevent you from getting injured, making sure that you're fit, just things like that. Like, I would love to be on the national team, but I think for me right now is like, I want to try to have an impact at Houston if I can. So that's my goal, I guess, for 2021.
I'll piggyback. I feel like one thing that we kind of sometimes differs in the women's game a little. Well, I mean, I'm not going to speak to the men's game because I don't know really how it works as far as national team stuff goes. But like, Gabby has always been a player that, to me, the national team, and Gabby knows this, to me, the national team sometimes gets like an idea of a couple players that they love literally from age 7, and they will watch them, and always have them in the back of their mind. To me, Gabby's always done a really good job of putting herself in kind of that situation. The club you played for, doing well at region camps, you were on youth national teams all growing up, had a great, you and I went to youth camp after our freshman season. Like, I feel like you have a great opportunity to be able to set yourself like little goals, because the national team coach, like they know who you are. There's someone that they're going to watch you. And if you, like you're saying, if you do make an impact at Houston, they're like, oh yeah, Gabby's been here. We know Gabby, like, let's bring her in. So I love hearing that mentality from you, that at the time, like, it's just, let's make an impact in Houston, because I feel like you've already honestly done some of the hard work and set yourself up to be recognized by the national team when that's not even necessarily your goal per se.
Right.
Where there are totally some girls that are in the NWSL, the national team literally has no idea who they are, right? And like, that's their ultimate goal, and they need to have like a standout season, and they need to score X amount of goals or make X amount of saves to get noticed. And so I feel like you've done the hard work to set yourself up to be able to focus on the small goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look at Christy Mewis. I mean,
yeah,
seriously, like, her story is incredible, but I mean, and she was on the national team for, some of her career, and then kind of got out of that pool and then worked her butt off to like get to where she is now. And I mean, she had a standout season and she's coming off her ACL, but like, I mean, she puts in the work and she does all of the little things. And that's another thing. Like, I feel like so many people want to be on the national team, or they want these big things, but they don't want to do like a lot of little things to get there. And truthfully, like what I've learned as being a pro is like all the little things truly add up to the big picture. And if you're in, like, sometimes injuries happen, but like even if you're doing all the little things, like you have a better chance of, you know, reaching those bigger goals if you are doing, like, even like I feel like in college, like we would go to the dining hall and like eat like 5 cookies and like you know, that's how you get freshman.
Yeah.
And like I just feel like even now, like I'm so focused on like my nutrition and like what I'm eating and getting protein and like things that like I didn't even think about when I was in college, really. I mean, maybe a little bit, but like when you're a pro, it's like if you're not doing those things, like that's that 1 or extra 2% that you should be doing if you want to be on the national team, or if you want to start for your pro team, like try like making like looking at the holistic picture, I guess.
Yeah. And I wish that, like, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that in the guys game, I feel like they're exposed to that professional level at such a younger age that they realize that at such a younger age. And honest to God, like, you know, if you're really honest, you're like, you know what, my God-given talent and like the fact that I just like am really freaking good at soccer, like has gotten me to this level, this level, this level. Like imagine, I think back now and I'm like, imagine if I would have liked to run at age 12.
Or lifted weight.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like imagine if I knew that that was going to be important to me being a professional. Like, and I feel like guys understand that and have opportunities to get exposed to like these things are important. And we're sitting here like literally having 5 cookies and 2 Gatorades after practice in college, you know, like it's like, what are we doing? Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like there needs to be some kind of different exposure to younger girls that like, these things do matter. This is what a professional looks like. And these are things you got to do to get there.
It's true. I agree with that 100%.
That's the point of this podcast, guys. That's why we're doing this.
Let's just send it to everybody.
So it's all of our responsibilities.
I thought we were doing this for the money, Jake.
Well, so far I'm at like negative $100 with my team. So I'll take Venmo, Dave. Thanks. No, but I think that's why we do these kind of things. And I think Gabby, especially being the position that you're in, as a face that girls know, that you local now and from Portland to Houston, that girls around those cities know, it's partially your responsibility. I think I'm sure you do a great job of it. And Marion, same goes for you. I mean, you've played in college, you're a member of the Triumph, and you guys can really help younger girls in the community, whether they're at CISA in Greenville or whatever the local club is in Houston or Atlanta or wherever you guys are. You can have conversations with girls and be like, this is what I didn't know then. And like, you can change 10 girls at once, and then those 10 girls will go on, maybe they'll do great things, and they can change it, or they can have the same conversation that you guys are having. But mainly the point of the podcast. So make sure everybody listens, all the girls out there and guys.
Jake, let me get the question in for Gabby.
Go for it.
I just want, for 2020, just to touch back on it now, you know, obviously you had the injury, you know, and you were coming back from that. But, you know, you did have this really standout season, 2019, right? Where, you know, you showed without doubt you could play at a very high level in the league. And then the injury came, and then the season came along, and, you know, you didn't get the playing time, you know, as you mentioned, that you were looking for in Portland. And then also, you know, that happens. And then also the expansion draft happens. You know, you were available, Louisville didn't pick you. So are these like adding logs to the fire that you're like, I'm going to go out there and now I'm with Houston and I'm going to show everybody that not only am I the player for 2019, but I'm everything everybody thought I was and more. And, you know, there's a reason why, as, you know, Marion touched on, you've been in the national team pool or mindset for so long.
Yeah, I think even like when I was growing up, I remember like this one time in ODP, I like didn't make the region team or something. And I remember like being so mad. And I remember being like, I'm going to work so hard to make sure this never happens again. And I think I still kind of have a little bit of that fire inside of me. Like, I know deep down, like, the player that I can be. And I want to be able to, I want to at least have an opportunity to be able to show that. And I think, yeah, I definitely have that motivation of, I want to prove to people that, like, I was a first round draft pick or whatever, even though that doesn't really matter. Like, I want to prove to people that I can be at that level again. And because, I mean, even when, I had kind of talked to Portland and I had told them, like, potentially I was, like, looking at maybe I wanted to maybe be closer to home. And I remember, like, even my agent reaching out to some teams and, like, they weren't super interested just because I was coming off injury. And Houston was, like, interested right away. And they, like, really, I felt like believed in me. And I think that's, like, really important. Like, Portland believed in me when I had surgery the first time, that they still drafted me. So they definitely still had that belief in me. And I think Houston kind of felt that too. And I definitely want to go somewhere where they believe in me and I'm wanted. And so I think that's the cool thing about me going into Houston, like, whatever my role is going to be, because there's potentially going to be an Olympics. I think there's going to be the Olympics next year. I would hope so.
I think we're all hoping for it.
Hopefully. So, okay, there's the Olympics next year. And, my rookie season, there was the World Cup, which I probably would not have had the opportunities that I had if the World Cup, maybe I would have, but that definitely helped me. So, who knows, like, there's going to be people in and out of Houston. And so I'm hoping that I do get that opportunity. And I definitely have, like, a little bit of fire inside of me to, like, want, to show other people, but really to prove to myself that I can play at that level again.
Yeah, and just to summarize real quick, also, like, again, you've shown that you can be the player that everybody, has said and has thought. Your coach in Portland obviously thought very highly of you, and just so many people have thought, you're really, really talented player, and you've shown that, and you've shown, the potential for more. And also, there's been so many examples of great players that had injury problems earlier in their career, overcame them, went on to have absolutely amazing careers, So there's absolutely no reason why you can't, go out there and be, just given the opportunity, this, tremendous star player in the league. Like, everybody thinks, the point guard of the midfield, I think you were, like, kind of, known as in Portland. That's when your coach in Portland, and that's kind of what they saw of you, as a player who really changed the game, changed the dynamic. And, during that year in Portland in 2019, he did that a lot. So,
I think I was lucky at Portland as well, because I also got to watch the Timbers, which was really cool in the sense of, like, Diego Chara is, like, my favorite player ever now. And I remember, like, my first ever experience, like, being in Providence Park was watching the Timbers home opener since we, like, had our stadium rebuilt. And I remember watching him and being like, I want to play like him. Like, and I feel like it was really cool, like, having him, just being able to watch him, like, in person and, like, truly see, like, he does so much of the dirty work and he puts in, like, so much work in a game, and he is on both sides of the ball. And I think it was, like, cool, like, just being able to have that influence and just being able to watch him, like, just helped me as a player too. Cause, like, I remember just wanting to be exactly like him, like, wanting to break tackles. And I don't know, he's just such a dynamic player. And I feel like he's finally getting the recognition that he deserves. But it was really cool being able to watch him play in person. Like, I'm truly super grateful for that as well.
Yeah. Portland on both the men's and the women's side is great support, good teams, good clubs. That whole Pacific Northwest area, including Seattle, is Washington, like that. It must be an awesome place to play. But my last question for you, unless we have anything else, would once you're done with your NWSL career, hopefully you get some national team caps, do all that different stuff. Stay healthy, of course. Are you going to go back and play in the WNBA?
Oh my God. Where are we going?
Yes. Great question.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
I thought he was gonna say, "Do you want to have me back on the podcast or something?"
I was not expecting it to go that way at all. Like,
Oh my gosh.
You're welcome back when you sign for like the Liberty or something. You're welcome back at that point.
she can do it. Have y'all ever seen this girl play basketball?
I've seen some highlights on YouTube.
No, I used to be good. I'm irrelevant now, but
So no, you're permanent
my fiance
retirement.
thinks he can beat me still, but like, and I haven't seen it yet. So
Well, for those that don't know, you were a very good high school basketball player. You were going to play at Georgia, and then before you. Oh, sorry, you're right. Thank you, Dave. You were going to play at Florida after your soccer career at Florida ended, and that just didn't happen. But I think it says a lot about you that you can be that good in two sports. It's pretty awesome.
gosh,
I have a
basketball, I
couple-
had to work 20 times as hard. Like I put in probably the most work ever to be good at basketball, but soccer was definitely more, I feel like, a natural gift. Basketball was a lot of work.
And whenever T comes back, we had a teammate that used to always challenge Gabby, like Gabby, you can't beat me. You can't beat me. Her name's Toriana Patterson. Do you know where she's playing right now?
No, I don't.
She's playing professional overseas somewhere, but she will have to get like a GoPro set up on a basketball court whenever she comes home and let her and Gabby duke it out. And that can be like our set. Me and Jake can commentate, and that'll be it.
That'd be fun.
Just real quick, Mary, do you have any other questions for Gabby or?
No. I was gonna say, kind of, Dave, when you were asking her, does that light your fire? There is not one person I hate seeing mad or with something to prove more than Gabby. So I mean, it's a scary thing, honestly. So if anybody can do it, it's definitely her. So.
One question that came to mind for me was, and we've touched on this throughout the show with different players we've interviewed, women's players particularly. Would if the NWSL, even with his still opportunity, but would you have considered going to Europe, or would you still consider it down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of just depends. Like, I really want to be a part of the NWSL because I want, if and when I have kids, I want them to like want to play in the NWSL, or not even just when I have kids. Like, I want, the kids who are growing up in our communities, like I want them to have a league to play in. Cause I remember growing up when the league folded, I don't even remember when that was, but I remember being like so disappointed. And so like, I do really want to be a part of like changing that and like us having a league in 20 years, and I really think we can do that. And so, but also like, I wanted to play in Australia potentially. Like I actually was going to play in Australia. I literally was like talking to Adelaide. I was gonna play in Australia. Then I tore my ACL. So because like obviously Australia would just be like really, it's like a really cool experience. And like I've had a lot of former teammates and friends who have played there, and like they've said like nothing but amazing things. But also like the new thing now is going to Europe to play. So like with COVID and everything, I mean it kind of makes sense. And I think teams there really treat the women's players great. And so I think, I don't know, I think it would be a really cool experience, but I also really want to be a part of the NWSL. So maybe.
And you have to get married at some point. You can't just leave McLean and go to Europe.
I know. Like I have to worry about him too.
Bring him with you. He'll go to Europe.
True.
I mean,
He would.
maybe. I don't know the guy.
Oh, he would.
You would.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to just touch on, and I wanted to get your thoughts, Gabby, and also Marion. I'd like to get your thoughts too. But it was a really good tweet that I just noticed last night. Bethany Balser put out, because The Athletic had put out like the year in sports for 2020, and Bethany put out a comment, and it seemed to get good feedback. And I think it's an important issue. It's like a few words to describe how I feel about this: pissed, underappreciated, tired. Congrats, men, for once again being better and brighter than us. So it was like the biggest moments, the best and brightest sports.
Oh yeah, I saw
year.
that. My coach also tweeted. Well, my Portland coach also tweeted something about that.
Even just in general, it doesn't have to be about the tweet, but I'm more, it could be the tweet, but I'm more interested in just like the role of women's soccer.
It's frustrating. It's exhausting, honestly. I just feel like if we got and half the coverage that I think men's sports get. Like, I just can't even imagine, because I even look at the Challenge Cup and we weren't even on the main channel, and like the viewership was up so much. And so I'm like,
the only sport playing. That's
yeah, and it wasn't even on the main CBS channel. Like, granted, and you had to pay a subscription, or like even like women's college soccer, you have to pay like an extra $6 to get ESPN Plus or ACC Net or whatever. And it's like, can you imagine? Like, and I just can't imagine if like ESPN actually like covered it, or whoever, like if anybody just stepped up, because they would realize that people are going to watch it. Like, clearly people watched it and paid $5.99 to watch CBS All Access. So I can't even imagine if we really did get the true coverage and the true recognition that we deserved. Like, I can't imagine how popular women's soccer would become.
Marion, do you have any thoughts too? Do you like to share? Or?
Do what?
Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share too? I'm just curious because I'm learning.
I mean,
about this more.
I couldn't agree more. I think it was so frustrating. Well, one, and I think it starts beyond that. You know, it's not just coverage. It's like what Jake was saying. It's just general opportunity, like for women's soccer. Like, and it's frustrating to see, like, and to be one of those girls that had a dream to do something like that. And I'm not saying that they're like not having opportunity was the reason like I didn't make it. There were several factors, including like my own work ethic, but not being able to see that like growing up, and like for it to literally take until I was in college to be around people like Gabby, for it to click, like this is the work that, because I was like, to be honest, I can't imagine if I would have put the work in high school, like, you know, where I could have been. Like, it wasn't necessarily like Gabby was saying that it was not hard to get to Georgia, but like I felt a lot like was just kind of like just talent. And so you just don't see like the opportunities. You're not exposed to the opportunities even at a young age to realize the level that like you need to be at. And then I think you go into the coverage aspect like Gabby's talking about. And sometimes to me, it's like a reverse loop. Like sometimes I think TV's like stations, sponsorships, whatever you want to call it, they don't think people are going to watch because the level isn't at the men's game per se. I think that's total BS. I think people obviously will watch. I mean, like the Women's World Cup is one of the most watched. Yeah, it's totally different. But also, if you give it more coverage, I guarantee you as the years go on, the level will continue to rise. Like, because more young girls are going to see it, more people are going to be invested, more money and resources are going to be invested into the women's game because they're seeing it more. And so I think to me, it's like this reverse thing. It's like, well, if you want to call like the level not good enough, like show it more, expose it more, get more stuff behind it, and it will get there. I mean, I think it's total BS anyway. So I just don't, I think it's frustrating because I don't understand the thought process, if that makes sense, really any way you put it. But
and like,
I do think
the MLS, like a lot of owners like go into debt in the beginning. Like, I mean, obviously like you have to invest money, and like you may not see a positive, maybe, you know, you may not be making money in the beginning, but it's like over time, like I think you're gonna make money. But I think, you know,
MLS owners they went into huge debt. There were about 3 or 4 of them.
Yes.
Now
they're making killing. Yeah. It's like
how many millions and multi-millions of dollars for the
well, and
well,
that's
Dave,
the other
Dave, I
thing
think, sorry, just to interrupt 1 second. I think, Dave, what it is like, it's not a lot. There's very few even men's professional teams that are profitable year to year. What it is, what you want, like I think it's like Arsenal. There's few, like Barcelona's in debt, like Manchester United is in debt. So it's not year to year profits, but you want, as an owner, you want your valuation. It's like selling a house. You want your franchise valuation to go up.
Right.
So that's how owners, they don't make money per se, but if they sell it on,
but the franchise isn't worth so much.
The franchise become worth so much. Yeah. And I think one point that is very important to the casual sports fan is, and it's what the national team does so well, so that's part of the reason why so many people watch it, is you know the story. So you feel a personal connection with the players. And I don't know if the NWSL doesn't do a good enough job, or if ESPN doesn't do it, or whatever news outlet. So I think that's a huge part where, yeah, maybe women's soccer, and you guys have said, it is a lower level, just pure athleticism in terms of that side of it. It's just women aren't necessarily as athletic, but you can still be more entertaining. You can still make more profit. You can still do all these things just by telling a story and get people interested in it. And I think that's a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are connected through storytelling, and like, I think I actually was just talking about this the other day. Like, so many people look at you as just an athlete, and like, even like when I got traded, like everyone, like, you know, you see sometimes some negative things, like how could the Thorns do that? But I don't think people understand that there's so much more, and we are like human beings. And I think people do forget that. And so I think the more that you can like relate to somebody, like they're just like me, you know, I think more people also connect to that as well. So
That's what I think it's important too, like you almost start that in front offices. Like I know in my short time, like with the Spirit, you know, it was so frustrating for them. Like why DC United didn't want to help be a partner, you know, and it's like, I think you need definitely more support, like on the men, like if there could be more MLS umbrellas, like MLS partners with NWSL teams, I think that would be huge. But I also do think it's kind of like Jake's saying, you know, you put a face and a story to even people in like the front offices. Like for us, there's a gap sometimes between our front office, like what they think our guys do and what our guys actually do, you know? And I think if you can just start at a level like that with like getting the front office to even understand, like, no, like they really like, let's all go get drinks or coffee or whatever. And like, they have the same stories as some of your sons and some of your daughters and all this kind of stuff, but they do more than just go train. You know, they have like so many more things that go into their day. And if you can just get people to understand that more, and like Jake's saying, bring a storyline to the front, I think that's the way for the women's game at the time being until the resources and stuff get there.
So wrap it up, Gabby, anything, where can people follow you? And also I saw that you are offering coach-up sessions. So any aspiring players in the Georgia, wherever area of Georgia you're in right now, looking to book a session with Gabby, are able to book it. So please tell us where they can follow you. And
yeah, I mean, Instagram, I guess. Twitter, I don't know.
Line of the DMs.
What are the handles, Gabby? Come on.
No, I mean, yeah, Coach. I mean, I'm in like Atlanta, so, but my fiance lives in Calhoun, North Georgia, and then I'll be in Peachtree City, which is like south of Atlanta. So
her actual handle, I just pulled it up. Her actual handle is Gabby_Seiler.
Okay.
Seiler.
Just put in Gabby and it'll come up.
Gabby Lorraine, actually. Okay.
And also, I see that you have a dog that seems to be more adept at Instagram than I am.
I know. Freaking, when I got traded, everyone was like, "Gosh, we're really gonna miss Thor." I'm like, "Thanks, guys." Like, hello.
Okay, Gabby also has another dog though. Its name is Aspen, and people forget about that giant thing.
I was impressed by the Instagram for your dog, because like I said, I think it's better at Instagram than I am. So, you know.
Yeah, honestly, if you want to reach me, DM me on my dog's Instagram because it's more important. Or Bear Kessler. Okay.
Well, anyway, thank you so much, Gabby. Thank you, Marion, for coming on today, and we expect many more episodes out of you as well. The people will.
What's Marion's nickname? What is she?
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
Gabby called me. Gabby started a nickname that I never had growing up. Growing up, I was May, M-A-E.
No,
do you have any nicknames that start with A that we can work into this show?
The Analyst.
Yes, that's good, Dave. Good, quick thinking on your feet. All right, so Marion, you go after Dave. So I say I'm the athlete. He says I'm the advocate, and you say I'm the analyst, and then we are the aristocrats.
I have to say this now.
Yeah.
No, you just say the last part. You just say,
okay.
Yes. You're a part of our closing now.
Marion.
This is exciting. We're having a new closing. So, ready, Dave? I'm the athlete.
I'm the advocate.
I'm the analyst.
And we are the aristocrats.
Aristocrats.